Hey guys, hope you're well. In this video, I'm going to show you how I apply Stan Weinstein's group analysis to better help me identify strong areas of the market with strong stocks that may be setting up as per my breakout criteria. I'm going to do that on the MarketSmith charts there. Today's video sponsor, discounted trial available in the comments below if you are interested. So in classic Stan Weinstein fashion, we're going to start off on the weekly chart and we're going to be taking a look at what is currently ranked the #1 industry group out of 197. That is oil and gas field services. We're then going to take it a step further because it's clearly a strong group, impressive RS line, potentially building a cup and handle that we'll talk about. We'll then dial it in and go, okay, there's potentially a strong group here. It's a constructive basing action. How do we go about finding the strongest stocks in said group? Thereafter, we're going to be jumping onto China, gold miners, and also copper related stocks, because this isn't just applicable to industry group charts. It's also applicable to sector ETFs and or theme ETFs. So you can try and identify the strength in that kind of sector ETF, that theme ETF, and then dial it in and try and identify what do you think is the strongest stock from a technical perspective, trying to build in and factor in the cancelling criteria as well. So hopefully this will start making more sense as we go. So oil and gas field services. First thing that I'm always looking for is this relative strength line. Ideally, it is pointing up like this. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a linear line, which is straight up like this. There's going to be some kind of zigs and zags along the way, but you'd like to see a very healthy RS line. Causality point, you'd like to see a decent sized cause being built. Why? Bigger the base, the bigger the result in essence. And then we can see this cup and handle potentially forming. Now the price is respecting these key moving averages. This red line here is the 10 weeks, so it's ebbed and flowed nicely around that, now potentially setting up. And then we have this handle forming around 230. And again, this RS line is still good. You've got the volume drying up. So in terms of a cup and handle here for an for an industry group chart, this is great. It's a large base, it's a cup and handle, which is obviously it was O'Neill's favorite basing pattern to see. You've got the volume drying up, impressive RS. It's the #1 ranked industry group out of 197. There's probably going to be some strong stocks within that industry group. Now there's two that I'm going to show you. You can kind of break it down and look at all the stocks in the group. MarketSmith does a fairly good job here at putting the top stocks on a relative strength and an earnings per share basis, and also those that are closest to their 52-week high. So the ones that I'm going to show you are going to be Schlumberger and also are going to be Halliburton. They are kind of the liquid leaders in the space. So we're going to take a look at a couple of the stocks. We're going to stay on the weekly chart as well. So we've identified oil and gas field services. Looks interesting on the weekly chart in terms of the industry group, and now we're looking at some of the individual stocks in there as well. And there's no kind of magic pill here. You have to do some work. You have to screen through some stocks. So you see how the RS line versus the market is turning up. Good. We have this cup and handle type pattern forming, which is good to see. Just a subtlety, when you see price coming up and out of the right hand side of a cup, it's really good to see. Lots of positive price action. So wide spreads, volume coming through on that move as well. So you see these blue volume bars, and then this potential handle forming around $40 low in the low 40s. Nice. See how the volume is drying up as well. So we now potentially have a strong stock from a technical perspective, which is in a strong industry group from a technical perspective. And then obviously you can do your O'Neill criteria. You can slim looking. So you've got the earnings per share ticking up year over year. Really good estimates for guidance up. You've got very high earnings. You've got very high sales. Return on equity good, 17%, so on and so forth. So this is how you can start off by looking at the industry group and or potential theme ETFs. I'll be showing you some of those as we progress through this video, and then you can start looking for strong stocks in said groups. Now as a little bonus as well, obviously you'd like to dial it in and trade strong stocks within strong groups, but how do you go about finding the leader as well? Well, what I like to do, you see this green line here, this is the industry group line of the stock versus its own industry group. So ideally you have the RS line, the relative strength line versus the market turning up, and also the stock versus its own group. Just helps you kind of dial it in one step further. Are you potentially trading or looking to trade the leading stock in a leading sector? Schlumberger is another one. So if we load Schlumberger's chart up, this is more obvious in terms of see the strength of the RS line, and then you see this green line here. This is Schlumberger versus its own industry group, which is oil and gas field services, currently ranked #1. So we have a very strong stock in a very strong industry group at present. Now this is more of a cup and kind of high-ish handle, setting up potentially around the 10 week. Just needs a little bit more kind of work on the daily chart for me. But you see this positive price action coming through as the stock powers up and out here. Then look at the volume coming through as well, confirming that positive price action. Really good to see. But this is how you can load up your industry group charts you can be going through. You can then flag some. Maybe there's between 5 and 10 industry group charts that look constructive. Maybe it's a big cup and handle, maybe it's a VCP. You see that the RS line is turning up. You can kind of flag those and or kind of have a note in your head. It's probably better to kind of flag them, I would say, and then go through and look at those individual stocks. I like looking at stocks when I'm in MarketSmith on a 3-month relative strength basis. Just helps more efficiently identify the emerging strength coming through. So that's kind of classic Weinstein in terms of the weekly chart. Let me now go down and let's do something a little bit different. So let's go and look at copper. So some of the copper stocks have made a couple of moves recently. So COPEX, this is the ETF. So this is applicable whether you're on the industry group charts as we were, or if you're looking at potential ETFs related to an area of the market. So I have a big list of ETFs that I work through and try and then identify strength. As TC2000 yells at me over there, but you can see COPEX, right? Started breaking out, but what do you notice here? Well, the ETF was actually basing really nicely. See how it's building this flag type pattern? The pink line and the green line, that's the 10 EMA and the 21 EMA. It's gone through this phase 4 decline here into a phase 1 basing action, breaking out of the phase 1 base. Look at the volume coming through, really good to see. And then you see this RS line here. See how the RS line is turning up and it's setting up nicely. So this is the sector ETF. So if the sector ETF is setting up like this, so this is what I was looking at last week, it was looking really interesting. So then it's trying to dial it into, okay, which stocks within this sector ETF are strong. So let's go take a look at some of them. So SCCO is one of them. See how you get the stock coming out of this nice phase 1 base. Look at the volume coming through, really good to see, positive price action. And then you have the RS line turning up versus its own industry group. Now it's listed in terms of the industry group, it's actually in mining, metals and ore. So I think it's good to look at the MarketSmith industry groups, but then also be aware of different sector ETFs as well, whether that be precious metal miners, gold miners, silver miners, copper related stocks. Okay, having various different ones that you then just working your way through can just help you then find this emerging strength. Then see how SSCCO, see how this is building a really nice kind of flag, bit of VCP action, high lows. The volume's drying up around the 1021 EMA, and the RS line versus its own group listed here, which is mining, metals and ores, really strong. So again, trying to dial it into the relative strength. Now look at the breakout. This is great action to see. Volume confirming the move as well. Another one was FCX, Freeport McMoRan. So another copper stock, but see how this was tightening around the 1021 EMA in there nicely. RS line turning up after it broke out of this phase 1 base, and this is kind of then the first base in the context of a stage structure. And then you had HBM, which is another copper stock. See how this was setting up around the 1021 and 50 SMA for more of a pocket pivot style action. But that there is how you could look at the sector ETF being COPEX and saw, oh, this is potentially looking fairly interesting in there. And then let's go for another flag, which is GDX. So this is precious metal miners, gold miners. This is the large cap ones. GDXJ is the smaller ones. So you get this cup and handle basing action coming through here. So the stock's clearly, well, the ETF is clearly in a phase 4 decline, starts building this phase 1 base. Look at some of the clues coming through here with the volume. Interesting, isn't it? I appreciate it's a little bit hard to see, but GDX, see how it starts putting in these high lows, this kind of flag type pattern, tightening nicely around the 10 and 21 EMA. Look how the volume is drying up. So if the sector ETF is setting up like this, there's probably some interesting stocks as well, isn't there? So take an MUX for instance. So the stock's clearly been in a long phase 4 decline, starts building this phase 1 base, breaks out of the phase 1 base. Look at all the volume clues coming through in here as well, really good to see. And then it starts getting really tight in here around the 10 and 21 EMA. Volume starts drying up nicely as well. The stock is starting to get out. There's other ones that have been breaking out, like an EGO as well, breaking through this kind of nice low pivot in there after this phase 1 base. So the point is, try and identify the industry groups, but then also try and identify the individual stocks that are potentially strongest as well. So this here is KWeb. So again, it's a similar one where it's been in the context of a phase 4 decline, moves in to a phase 1 base, which is a fairly large phase 1 base. Lots of blue volume bars coming through, so potentially some subtle clues, some nice selling climax action. That's kind of a Wyckoff term in there. After this phase C spring, so this would then be a nice spring in the context of a phase 1 base. And then do you see how last week, see how this is then setting up nicely along the 1021 EMA. See how this is setting up again, kind of same flag type pattern. See how the volume's drying up. No, it's hard to see, but see the relative strength lines turning up there as well. So okay, if China, and this is obviously then, it's then more of kind of a theme ETF if you like. Well, if KWeb is setting up, maybe there's some interesting China related stocks setting up. So likes of a TME was fairly strong, building a high tight flag. You've got loads of other ones. LMCO is another one. See how this was building a flag in there. Another one, PDD, potentially trying to set up as well. Had this kind of low pivot breakout. NSO is another one. See how this is building a flag in there and breaking out. See how the volume dried up, comes out of this phase 1 base, comes out of this phase 1 base in here. Look at the volume coming through, really positive price action. So I'll wrap it up there, guys, as I don't need to make this video really any longer than that. But the point is, if you look for the sector ETFs and all the industry groups that are showing relative strength, and you see constructive basing action, it's then likely there are individual stocks there also which are displaying constructive basing action. So this video really centered around the kind of sentence of strong stocks with, or strong groups with strong stocks in them. So that there is how I kind of focus. Where is the relative strength in the market? What are the potential sector ETFs? What are the themes? What are the industry groups where you can see a constructive base forming, and then dial it into the individual stocks? Are they setting up and meeting my criteria? So that's it, guys. I will wrap it up there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.